What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the budget for Scream 5, as well as how much I think it needs to make at the box office in order to break even or to be a success. I've seen other people, actually Beyond the Mask did a video very similar to this, and I think he did an awesome job. I wanted to kind of weigh in because I think a little bit differently than some of the other people, around on YouTube. So, look, there's no concrete number for the budget for this film. I know he had said in his video it's somewhere, and I'll even maybe stretch it, anywhere between like $30 to $40 million. I tried to look myself. I mean, there's nothing. I think we will find out once the movie is out, maybe like a week or two after that, or sometime in that general range. I think we'll get, a general look at how much this movie costs to make. But if you look at all the other ones, I mean, they went up, right? Each one went up. The first one was around 15, second one was around 24, 25, third one was at around 40, and 4 was at 40. Now, you would say, well, maybe it continues to go up. Well, I personally think I think what they would want to do is to bring it down. This has happened for franchises before. In fact, my favorite franchise I've talked about on this channel, Pirates, right? Pirates actually kind of skyrocketed, and then they tried to bring it down with 4, and then most notably 5. Going into 5, it had a very, very small budget compared to 2 through 4 because they were trying to, save money. It was a franchise that you're trying to see what it can do now, years after. I think Scream is very, very similar in a lot of ways, right? I don't even think they'd want to hit, 40 million, the same as 4. I think they would want to try to backtrack as much as you can to that 30, 35 range, saving as much money as humanly possible. And honestly, I mean, that is like money and greed and stuff, but also, when you reduce the budget, the more money you make, you're making more money than you would have, right? So let's say it's around that 30 to $40 million range. How much to do everything else? Well, this is where I think I very much separate myself or think pretty differently from at least what I've seen other people talk about online. So movie budgets tend to be, or movie, profits, it's normally around that 50-50. So you normally just try to double what the production budget, what you see the budget being, and then you just double it. So if the budget is 30, then 60 million in all is it's not perfect. It is not. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's more. But that normally goes into the marketing, pushing the movie out. So to be safe, it's probably best to double the budget. And you do that you do that for any movie. I mean, if a movie costs $200 million, normally you look at $400 million, or at least maybe $350 in order to break even, okay? That's just to break even. So that is a little worrisome, I guess, in a way. And honestly, that's probably why Scream 4 failed, right? Because you look at Scream 4, again, the budget was 40, and it made 97.2. Now, you would say, oh, well, that's actually kind of good. You know what I mean? If it's only 40 million, they doubled their money. Well, no, not if it really was 80 million, which it probably was, closer to 75 to 80, and then the movie made 97. That's only 10, 15, 17 million dollars, somewhere. You don't know exact numbers, right? That's like $10 to $15 million profit, which is most likely, or actually probably was, right? Not enough for them to continue the franchise forward. That's another thing you have to think about, right? Is, for a one-off movie, or if they're only planning on it being one, or if it's the last movie in a franchise, it doesn't matter as much. But if this is supposed to kick off, and this is, right, Scream 2022 is a kickoff to future Scream movies and maybe Scream shows and, a bunch of different stuff, right? The movie needs to be successful. So to me, if it got below 100 in all, that would be a failure. I would consider it even though, again, like if it's 30 million, then you go to 60, it makes $140 million profit. That maybe it would be enough. But I think in order to slam dunk it out, to just hit it out of the water, you really would need something in the mid, I don't even want to necessarily say mid 100s, because I think a 120 to 140 would honestly be enough as well. You know what I mean? Now, I guess adjusted for inflation is tough, right? Because these movies came out a long time ago, but 3 had 40 million budget and it grossed 161 million. Now, again, 161 back then, and 172 for Scream 2, and I think also 173 for Scream 1. I mean, 173 25 years ago was not actually 173. You know what I mean? So you have to consider that. Now, I'm not saying that this movie is going to hit 200 million. My prediction is if it just knocks it out of the park, I think 150. And this is over. This is not like week one. This is in all. I think $150 million in all would be what it does. And if it could do that, which I do think is possible, I mean, if it can open up, and I know people are kind of saying it, right? If it opens up somewhere in that, if it makes somewhere around like $50 to $70 million worldwide the first weekend, that's probably good enough, because the second week drop is normally anywhere between 40 to 70%. Like if it's a horrible film, sometimes it drops 70%. If it's a better film, sometimes it's only like 40, 45, 50%. So, if you open it up with anywhere between, that 50, 60, 70 million dollars, and then it drops, then you make like 30 week 2 overall, you're already at 100. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably pretty safe. I think you probably need 70 million opening, and then somewhere around 30 million the second week. So somewhere in the 100 million the first 2 weeks in order for it all to work. Because after that, especially for a movie like Scream, I think, and you have, by the way, not that I think it really is much competition, but you do have Morbius the second week of January. And then once you get to like week 3 and week 4, you don't even need competition for movies to drop. That's kind of just, unless you're like Spider-Man or Avengers, unless you're something like that. But for a movie like Scream, those first 2 weeks is most of it. You know what I mean? If you can't make $100 million in the first 2 weeks, it's most likely not going to happen, and it's honestly, I would say, a pretty bad sign. But if you could do, again, like 120 up, I would say that's fine. You know what I mean? If the overall budget, even if you balloon it, say the overall budget is like 65, 70 million, that's a lot of money, right? But if it made 120, I mean, you make $50 million in profits. And again, it's not necessarily even about profit. It's about, this is the kickoff to more, because you have to think too, like, this may be the bigger of them all. Like if you did another movie, but you didn't have, say, Sydney, or Sydney isn't like the main character in it, as a producer and as somebody like behind the scenes working on this movie, do you expect this to be the starting money making point and then it's going to go up for the next Scream movie and so on? Or do you think this is the high and then you're trying to milk in a way, but not necessarily in like a horrible way, right? Then you're trying to milk 2 more because you're trying to make it a trilogy, let's say. And do you expect it to kind of drop? That's a question. I really don't know the answer to it. I would personally think that honestly the money would stay pretty stagnant, or it would actually drop from this movie to the next and so on, just because you're not really going to have the kind of push unless this movie is like spectacular, like it's a really like everybody loves it, then you kind of build that, oh, it's you know what I mean? But I would say in terms of getting people excited leading into a movie, in terms of like it returning, you can't really do this again for the next one. You know what I mean? Because if the next one comes out 2-3 years from now, you're not going to be able to drum up this kind of excitement unless this one is like spectacular. Everybody falls in love with the new faces. The new faces are the future going forward, and then you can build from there. Then they could go up. But taking maybe a little bit more of a pessimistic, but just honestly not even pessimism, just kind of cautious approach to it, I would say, to think that this is the high. So again, why did I say all of that? Well, because if the movie makes 100, like, yeah, that's solid. You're going to make money off of this one. But the point, same thing with Scream 4. They made money on Scream 4. But the point is, it's the starting point for the future. And if this one didn't do so well, what about the next one? What about the 6th one? You know what I mean? What about the trilogy? Because then most likely you'll probably lose money on one, if not both of those. And that's where the issues start to come in. So again, I would predict and hope 100 million after 2 weeks. So that's somewhere in that 60 to 70 million range week 1. I don't, domestic, international, I'm talking about just in general. I mean, domestically, you're going to make more domestically in terms of Scream than you would for some other movies, right? But I think just overall, worldwide, 60 to 70 million week 1, somewhere in that 30 to 40 million week 2. You get to 100, and then you just see if you can get to, and I think if you did that, you would be able to get probably 130 max, 130, 135. If week 1 and week 2 are higher, then I think you can start to push 150. We'll have to see, how it all overall goes. But I think that would be a good prediction. I think that's a good prediction for me. And also, I think that would lead to good things happening. I think they would be happy. I think they'd be happy about the future with those kind of numbers. I think it would be all good. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. If you want to follow me over on Twitter or subscribe to my second channel or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links for all of them are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.